Welcome to another episode of First Impression Sports Talk. I'm Jasmine Pollock, your host, and today we're going to talk about the NBA Conference Finals between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets, who are playing right now in Game 4, and the Miami Heat destroying the Boston Celtics in Game 3. And we're going to talk a little bit about the NAIA Flag Football Championship. So let's get started. Welcome back to First Impression Sports Talk. Again, I'm your host, Jasmine Pollock. To start the night off, I'm going to talk a little bit about the conference finals. Let's start with the Eastern Conference Finals, where the Miami Heat took a commanding 3.0 lead over the Boston Celtics at home yesterday. In Game 3, they were up by 33 points. They destroyed Boston. Boston had no answers, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown both did not have good games, with Jason Tatum only having 14 points and Jaylen Brown only having 12. This team was just discombobulated from the jump. The Heat came out playing aggressive, with a lot of their role players playing really well. Of course, that guy Jimmy Butler, who is a game changer, he is really putting the Miami Heat team on his back. And let's not forget Coach Eric Spoelstra of the Miami Heat, been to 8 conference finals since LeBron has left, and he's been competing with this team and putting the pieces together in order to win. And it looks like Miami Heat is looking to get the sweep tomorrow against the Boston Celtics. And on top of that, the Boston Celtics out-rebounded the Miami Heat last night. And I'm trying to figure out how they were destroyed that many times, 33 points. And it's just crazy because ever since the game started, the Miami Heat continuously kept the game going. They kept their offense flowing. They kept their defense just being tenacious, and they could not miss any shots. Miami was on fire from 3-point and from the 2-point range. Let's go into the other conference game, which is the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Denver Nuggets. Right now, they are playing in Game 4. Lakers look to avoid the sweep because they're down also 3-0, and the Denver Nuggets are looking to get the sweep to get to their first ever finals appearance. But right now, the Los Angeles Lakers have a lot of issues with transition defense in this series, and it's really showing. And Joker and Jamal Murray have really exploited their weaknesses. And LeBron James, I feel, has to have one of those games where he's going for 40 or maybe 50 points in order to keep their season alive and keep this series hopes alive of them trying to come back and maybe win in Game 7. But that's the only chance of the Lakers winning, is getting to Game 7 and trying to win on the road against Denver. But again, right now they are playing, and the Lakers are looking to avoid the sweep and maybe get one more shot to try to compete for the finals appearance. But let's bring on Ramisha Gordon. We're going to talk a little bit about the NAIA National Championship that took place in Atlanta, Georgia. So hello, Remy. Good evening.
Hi.
Welcome. So I know you were on last week, so I know people are tired of seeing us talk, but we're going to continue to talk. So Let's talk a little flag football.
Okay.
And the Ottawa Warriors won a third straight time against Thomas. So we were always asking ourselves, like, which team was the strongest team in the conference? Which team was going to give Ottawa a run for the money? And I was thinking it would be Thomas, because Thomas was such a dominant team on the defensive side of the ball. And offensively, they got better at quarterback. They were able to throw down the field more. Brittany Delva still being Brittany Delva. Renee, all those guys, Janae Scott, they all were so very lethal for the Thomas Nighthawks. Yeah. But Ottawa wins. What's your thoughts on that? And has Ottawa become the juggernaut of this conference? Are they like the number one team ever, the best team ever to do this?
I mean, that's a real good question. But honestly, I would say they have to be. I mean, they beat Thomas 18-13.
Yes.
And us knowing, like, I'm like, oh, Thomas is going to defeat this. Like, they're going all the way. They're going to be champs. Like, and I already had my faith in them. As much as we don't want to give Thomas their gems. But, yeah, they're a great coordinated team. Just watching them play, I was like, yeah, they have this for the champs. So it was very surprising to learn that they did not win against Ottawa. And
Yes.
Ottawa is not an underdog. They've been the talk.
They've been
But
the champs for three. This is their third straight time winning it.
yeah, but I don't know. I saw Thomas winning. So
And just to piggyback off of that, they did play Thomas on the 19th, and they beat Thomas 19-0. And then Thomas comes back out and has a much better game. But let's dive into a little bit about Ottawa. So Ottawa is a very talented team. They're a very good team with a lot of great players. Of course, their quarterback, Madison, she is a lethal quarterback. She can pass the ball. She can do a lot of different things and add pressure to the defense.
Yeah.
When we look at their defense, they have a scheme that's very hard to overcome because they have so much motion on defense that causes other teams to be suffocated on offense. They don't move the ball as well. But Thomas is just that athletic enough to compete for that.
Yeah.
And I just
It's
feel
not
like
surprising.
in the conference that Ottawa is in, is there enough talented teams to compete with an Ottawa? I mean, you have Campbellsville. They had their first season this year. Kansas Wesleyan. It was Milligan for a couple of years. They're no longer a program. We look at all these teams, and there's not a team that, okay, Ottawa, this is going to be a battle. It's always like a blowout or they just destroy teams. Yeah. And then you look at the NAIA, our conference, the Sun Conference. You have Warner, you have Weber, you have St. Thomas, who was a very good team this year. Of course, Thomas, Kaiser, Flomo. Even though Flomo didn't win, they were still a good team and still gave teams a run for their money. So would there be a situation, Remy, do you think Ottawa will maybe try to come into the Sun Conference and get more competition?
I think so. Only because that's how you get better, right? And you get better in the off season, not during the season. During the season, you're able to show how great you have become, but all the hard work is done in the off season.
Yes.
You were just hitting the nail on the head about athleticism in different programs. We have the opportunity to see other teams and how they play their games. And you always have good games and you have bad games, but at the end of the day, overall, you'll see how their program is ran just based off of how their games go on the longevity side. Jazz, man, and I don't think it's not athleticism. Like Flomo has athleticism, right? So that's why they're able to give people a run for their money. But it's about how the program is put together. It's about how much the coach invests into their players and their full potential. As you see, we've seen a lot of players go to different teams just based off of how their program is ran. And it's nothing against any coaches. I'm not going to do that.
We're not going to do that today.
But I would say, like, you should see this as an opportunity to not only better yourself as a coach, but also take your players as far as they can reach.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love how you just put that because it's all about a culture when it comes to building up a program. And I think, and I have to give it to Ottawa, even though I'm not big fans of them, just how they run particular things, but what they do, how their coaches, and not to mention the assistant coach for them, and her name is escaping me, but they're both twins. One of the twins used to be an assistant coach for the San Francisco 49ers. So she's bringing that NFL philosophy to their program.
That changes the game.
Yes, that's crazy, isn't it?
Like game right there.
So she's adding, okay, I got the NFL taste and what they do. Now I'm going to bring it to flag football, women's flag football, and I'm going to give it to them. They've been dominant, but I just feel like in their conference, there's no other team that you can say, dang, that's going to be a battle every time they meet each other.
Right.
You go through your conference, which rightfully so, you play who you play, but then you get to the championships now, and you're ready for these games. Oh, I'm ready for these games.
Yeah.
And it's like, what about playing those teams all the time? Playing a Thomas 3 times a year, playing a Kaiser 2 times a year, or a St. Thomas 2 times a year. When you look at that, I feel like it would make it more competitive. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
I think there's a lot of girls. There's a lot of talented girls across the board, but I've just seen how Ottawa has been able to win and how a lot of teams don't want to play them because of just how they play. that's a problem. I just
Yeah.
think it's a problem. Going to a conference where you are competed against, where you can have like, okay, we're gonna battle out and show people that we are the best of the best. Go into the Sun Conference. That's what I
Yeah.
want to see.
Can I add on to you really quick?
Yeah.
Whew, you're just hitting it tonight. Yes, like you see other programs like Warner, Weber, Kansas. You see them competing. I mean, even these first time schools, even Fort Lauderdale, even
Yes.
just the opportunity for them to even come out
I
and
forgot about them.
yeah. So just them being able to compete in this league, it's great for them. This is their first time. These are their first year programs, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
up and coming. But
Yes.
for people that have been around since Ottawa has been around, like Thomas, like Weber, like Warner, you would think that they would have the opportunity to compete at those different levels. Instead, they're competing at lesser levels. And I don't take away I don't take away from any teams that are just starting and things like that. But
Right.
I'm saying compete at the level that you want to reach. So
Yes.
there were times where, Warner, and I'm pretty sure other schools did it too, competed against other college programs that were not necessarily in AIA. There were club programs. So like FSU and UF, like programs like
Yes.
that, right? And like I said, I'm not taking away from anyone, but that's not your level, right?
Right.
It
I
is
agree.
okay to get playing time, but I'm telling you, you need to be competing and getting better as a player, as a team, right?
Yes,
So
I agree. And
compete,
you mentioned Florida State and the Gators and programs like that, and we've had programs. I know Warner last year when we played against FSU and we played against Florida. And I
Mhm.
look at that and I'm like, being that the flag football sport is growing with women, I would love to see like the SEC, ACC, the Sun Conference, things like
Yes,
that happen. I want to see that
yes.
because like that could add some like, okay, here's another college sport that people are like, okay, women's flag football is
Mhm.
gaining traction. And it's not like
Mhm.
it's getting worse because there's so many talented players. But you mentioned earlier players leaving programs. So we saw Weber, one of their players, I think it was her Suzanne,
Yep.
she went to Ottawa.
Yep. Yep.
She just went to Ottawa this past year. And then we look at St. Thomas, their number one rusher, number 22. She was able to go transfer to Ottawa as well. So they're
Mhm.
leaving the Sun Conference. Do you think it's because the Sun Conference is too hard, or do you think that it would be an easier way to go if you go with the defending champs? Like, I'm just go tag along,
Yeah.
easier. I have a better chance.
Yeah. So I would honestly feel that it's an easier route because like I was saying, like it's not about the girls having the potential or these young women
Yes,
having the potential because I see so much potential, talent, skill, hard work, but you go as far as your program allows you to go, right?
I
So if
agree.
you're limited and you got a team that the sky's the limit for them and they're going crazy, why not be on that team? And it's not
Right.
about the winning team, it's about the winning program. It's about how these teams are getting better each year and still dominating, you know?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And now Jeremiah's on. Let's keep you both on because we're going to talk about more a little bit about flag football. So Jeremiah, we were just talking a little bit about Ottawa winning their third straight championship in the NAIA Women's Flag Football Championship, and we were just talking about how the conference they're playing in, even though there are some great talented players, there's a lot of people that like myself and like Remy who look at it like, okay, where's the talent around? Where is the other people, the other teams that can compete with in Ottawa? Whereas you look at the Sun Conference, you have a Thomas, you have Kaiser who battled it out all season, and then you have St. Thomas who's battled it out all season. All these teams are battling it out in the Sun Conference, and they're battle tested. And if you see, they have done a little better in the
Mhm.
conference because or in the playoffs. So Jeremiah, to your point, do you think Ottawa needs to join the Sun Conference to get a real taste of are they a competitive team?
I believe so. I mean, when it comes to those type of things, especially when a lot of like your good teams, like like snatch away so many of, the top prospects, especially that can go to other schools. I mean, they look at, of course, going back to back, or looking at the programs and the things that surround them. So I think that when it comes to program like settings, I think to me it's the most biggest thing. But I would say what you said. Like, I think that is like, I would say the most important when it comes to the SON conference
Yes.
aspects of that. For me, I mean, for when it's all about the environment that you mostly creating for your teams, because you have to have somebody that you're playing for. Because at the end of the day, these girls have to want to play for you. They have to want to
Right.
play for your university at the end of the day. These
Yeah.
girls, especially, you have the ones that's even the deepest of your bench that can really surprise you at the end of the day. But so many
Yes, it's all
don't
about
get those
matchups.
shots. Yeah,
Hmm.
though many of those don't get really those shots because they get to, a minimum because of trying to chase after maybe this other prospects that you're trying to,
Mhm.
try to wine and dine, but you have, your resources right here, but it's just all about making them play for you. And one example, I'm sorry to go from different sports, is just like you have your underdog story. Look at what the Miami Heat is doing. You don't have to have superstars on your team, but you have so many people that will play for you and they can become superstars.
And not to mention, when you could have your superstar player, but there's other players that are comfortable being in the role, like they play the
Yes.
role, right?
Yes.
So let's pivot to Warner flag football because we have a
Yeah.
close knit relationship with the flag program. We are former players. Jeremiah, you are a cameraman, all these different things. So
Yeah.
Remy, I'm going to start with you. Let's look at the season.
Mm-hmm.
Warner had would you guys rather say like a underwhelming season compared to last season? I'll go with you, Remy. What was your take on this season? More girls, of course. Last year we didn't have as many girls, but now we have a multitude of girls, and it didn't seem like we got to that point like we did last year.
Yeah.
So, what is your take, and what do you think Warner has to do moving forward with all these pieces, but also maybe girls leaving? So I don't want to say too much because
Yeah.
that's a confidentiality, but
Yeah.
what do you think is the next step for Warner in order to compete with a Thomas, a Kaiser, and Ottawa?
So overall, I would say I was disappointed, but I knew that this was going to happen just because of how the program has been going over the
Yeah.
years. I was kind of hurt because I seen so much talent. The recruiting is there, right? The recruiting is there. Like all those girls that were on the team, everyone brought something to the table. Everyone brought something different, whether it was you're a star player or whether you
Mm-hmm.
were somebody deep on the bench that had the heart to get on that field and play for your team. I think the next steps for them, I mean, because I could go on and on, but overall, I think the next steps for them, it would just be to have an investment, like someone to
Mm-hmm.
invest into these individual players.
Yes.
Like I said, to help them reach their full potential. Because
Yeah.
if you're going on a third season and you're not any better than you were when you first
The
started,
first season. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
got some questions. I got some questions, not about you, but about the program now,
Yeah.
So,
Because you just hit something because when we look at sports, right, you want to make sure that you evolve in the program. You want to make sure that the program is going this. Or
yeah,
even if you've been good for so long, you want to stay consistent with particular things.
yeah,
When I look at Warner, I think our biggest issue is conditioning. I think our biggest issue is fighting for the sport. Like literally saying, you know what? I love this sport. I enjoy playing it. And I want to work as hard as I can for not just myself, but my teammates, my coaches, and really competing for taking each game at a time. I feel like so many times we were focusing on other things. Then
yeah,
okay, let's focus on this game and prepare for this
yeah.
game. Let's sit down, look at film, and really analyze. And
Even if the team
also,
is good,
yeah.
even if
It's
you
not
know
like
you're
Warner
gonna
didn't
get
have players.
whooped
Warner has plenty
by
of players to
Thomas,
compete. Yeah,
it's the confidence in yourself and the confidence in your team that
yeah.
regardless of how this score is gonna go, we're gonna play our best, and who knows how that game is gonna turn out just because you had the confidence to go out on the field and trust each other on that field.
Exactly. And Jeremiah, I'm gonna let you chime in. But when it comes to Warner, there's so many things that they do well that I don't see other teams well. There's a sisterhood
Mm-hmm.
at Warner. Not saying other schools have sisterhoods, but it's just, of course, I'm being a little biased because we went there and stuff like that. But there's so many players, we built so many connections. I feel like we have a very good way of bonding with each other, but it doesn't translate sometimes on the field. And I want to know, like, how did you have to translate that on the field in order to be successful? And when I look at Thomas, let's look at Thomas, for example. This is the back-to-back year they went to the championship. Even though they lost, but they still went back. They were right where they left off. Okay, we're going right back. They only lost one game in the regular season. We're going right back.
Mm-hmm.
Number one defense, going right back-to-back years. And the same players, but you added certain pieces. Like, okay, let's get another quarterback. Let's get another person to implement in different places, and it put them on a different level. And that's why I'm saying for Warner, I think Warner has to do that as well. Like, you can keep your nucleus, keep your strong, your people that have been there with the program, but then add the new recruits and get some transfers in there and say, you know what, let's put these pieces together. Let's develop our players. And then we see what happens. But Jeremiah, what to you, before we get out of here, what does Warner flag football, what does Coach Tim Mims have to do in order to get to that next level?
To me, it's the most important thing, which is a player development. At the end of the day, your players need to be trusting in you to where they know that this is our leader. It's all about leadership at the end of the day. I am buying into what you are saying, not just for me getting over here, but me going to the promised land. When it comes to every coach, you got to have a challenge for each of your players. You have to be pushing them, having a relationship with them. When it comes to on the field, off the field, having a certain connection so that you can push them as a whole team, as a whole unit to get to that next level. And I feel like for these last 2 years, Warner has lacked that when it comes to the distance. I mean, the girls, they do get along. They bond very well. But when it comes to the coach and trying to understand, there's a whole disconnect. And when it comes to everything on the field, it's going to affect in a big way because at the moment of time that your players stop playing for you, that's how you know you lost them. And that's how you know you lost the season. And trying to get that back is not always the best.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's powerful. And I feel like I believe Warner has a deep team, the deepest team in the Sun Conference. I do. I know what I saw. I know what I saw at scrimmage. I know what I saw that they could do. But I think what has happened was, I think the mental drive of everybody from players to coaches has to be turned up a notch. It has to be. You have to look at it you have to look at the game at many different angles. You have to look at it through film work. You have to look at it through practice. You have to look at it through so many different things. And you have to say, okay, look at each one of your players, look at what each one of your teammates, and say, you know what, this teammate will be good at this because I see what she can do. I see that, okay, she's the fastest, put her here. She's strong, put her here. Different things like that. You have to put your players in place to compete that they are the best at. They may not love that position, but that position is where they thrive the most. You know what I'm saying? There's so many. I'll give you a prime example. Lamar Jackson, phenomenal talent. He could play running back if he wants to. He could. He was told, he should play running back. But what did he want to do? He wanted to play quarterback. And look what has happened. Look what he was able to do playing quarterback. So even though he would be a very good running back if he was trained to do that, he would be a very good running back. But guess what? His pedigree, his mindset, his arm strength, and his development makes him a good quarterback.
Yeah.
We look at all these things, and that's what I think Warner has to do. Look at these players. This is their strongest thing, and this is the position we need right now. This is their strength. And if they make a mistake in a game, work with them on that mistake.
Yeah.
Don't take them out. Don't rechange the whole thing. Keep them in there. Keep them in there and say, we're going to work on this in practice. So that way you get it down every time. It's okay for players to make mistakes in games, but it's one thing to continue to keep making the same mistake. That's where it becomes on the coaches end, like, okay, we have to do better with that. That's what I think is. But Remy, go ahead. You have something.
I wanted to add on something as well, because you were talking about Thomas's defense. Man, I think one of the next steps for Warner would be having a dominated defensive. Yeah, I mean first and second string, you need it. Like defense wins championships, right? Thomas doesn't make it that far without that defense, right?
Yeah.
They really need some help there.
I think, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
and they need to do drills. In football, you have to do drills in order to get better at every level, every position. Every position you have to do drills in order to make sure that you are the best fit for the position. You have to do drills. And when you don't do drills, you can't just go out there and say, okay, this person's talented, just go out there. No, even your most talented people have to do drills to get better. You have to do that. At the off season, what I reckon, if anybody from Warner's watching from the flag football team, you guys have to condition when you go in the off season, focusing on conditioning, focus on making sure your route running is crisp, making sure your flag pulling is crisp, making sure you understand plays. Don't even touch a football yet. Don't touch a football yet for a couple of months. Get your agility up, get your physicality up, your endurance. You guys need to be doing sprints. There's no way the softball team ran more sprints than we did. There's no way.
And if you won't do it for the team, do it for yourself. How much better do you want to get as an individual? You know?
Right. I agree. And it's just they need that. This is all love, by the way. We're all saying this out of love because we played for the program. We know what we can be. But it's just getting to that next level and turning that corner. Because flag football is a sport that's growing so much, especially amongst women. And what I've seen, of course, shout out to Cynthia Holmes, shout out to all those girls that lead the charge at Warner University. Shout out to Tashumba Washington down in St. Thomas. All these players are playing at the highest level, and they're bringing the sport to a different level. And I want flag football to take off. It has to take off. Yeah. But it starts with the coaches understanding their players, making sure that these girls are doing drills in the off season and making sure they're practicing at the highest level and practicing all different phases of the game. Offense, defense, special teams, pass catching, flag pulling. That is important.
Yeah. And the coaches need to understand the game too. You can't just want to be a coach for a flag football team because you think it's all girls and it's going to be easy. It's not. We're as competitive as the guys without the pads, right? Yes. So you got to really be invested in this team, not for a face, but for these girls.
Yes. And they need to watch film. Film is your best friend, right, Remy? If any sport, you have to watch film. You have to watch this play, you have to get back more. This play, you need to be up more. Or this play, you should have ran a deeper route or a shorter route. Or you should have seen this. You should have read this.
Pick me apart.
Film is your best friend.
Yes. In the off season, it is as important. You need to be watching those other teams, but also you need to be watching yourself. I really want to see them scrimmage and then watch film on that scrimmage. Pick apart everybody, and that's not only good for the players, that's also good for the coach. You get to see things that you did not see because you're focusing on other things. I think also what Tim needs, he needs another coach. He needs somebody that's going to be out there with him 24/7 on that field, offense, defense, and practices as well, and including the off season. He needs a right hand, honestly. It's not,
and of course,
but he needs that support. He does.
Yeah, and I want to do a special shout out to Coach Travis Combs, who is the defensive coordinator for Warner. But he couldn't come to all those games because he's the head coach for Leonard High School. He's their head flag football coach. So he couldn't always be there at the practices. So you only have one coach and you have 30 plus girls. That's a lot to handle. So I think that what you need, and I love that, you have to get somebody. You have to have coaches that see different things every day. Like for as practice, okay, such and such didn't do that route correctly. We need to talk to them. Or this person didn't read this. You have to do that in the flag football game in order for Warner to be successful. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We want Warner to win. It's not sitting here saying like, no, because we know we saw it. We know we were in the program. We know the potential. It is there. We recruit very well. I think we're the best recruiting team in the conference.
So I do. I think so too.
Then you get more girls, but you have to make sure you're developing them. Of course, they're talented. That's why they're there. They can do it. But it's just getting to that point, okay, now we're going to turn you up a notch. Now we're going to make sure to give you more skills so that way you're the most lethal player or flag football player in the conference.
Yes, man. You're hitting it. You're hitting it.
Yeah, so that wraps up First Impression Sports Talk. Thank you, Remy. Thank you, Jeremiah. I know he was having some technical difficulties, but we'll get that squared away for you guys next week. But tonight, definitely continue watching this game between the Lakers and the Nuggets. Lakers are trying to avoid the sweep, and Denver's trying to get the sweep in order to get to their first appearance in the finals. That wraps up First Impression Sports Talk. See you next time for more.